After stealing a surgeon's identity, this man went on to perform successful surgeries whilst aboard a Navy destroyer. It was just one of many identities he lived. Ferdinand Waldo Demara became many different people during his 6 decades on Earth. Known as the Great Impostor, Demara would run away at the age of 16 to become a monk, before joining the United States Army in 1941. His new career as an imposter would follow. Using the stolen identities of others, Demara would go on to spend time as a sheriff's deputy, a prison warden, a doctor of applied psychology, a sanitarium orderly, a lawyer, a child care expert, a monk, an editor, a cancer researcher, and a college professor. But perhaps the greatest exploit he pulled off was his stint as a trauma surgeon aboard a Royal Canadian Navy destroyer during the Korean War. Luckily for Demara's unassuming patients, he had a photographic memory and was able to memorize techniques from medical textbooks. The unqualified surgeon would go on to successfully perform major surgeries, staving off infection with large doses of penicillin. On one occasion, 16 Korean combat casualties were loaded onto the destroyer, badly injured. It was up to Demara to save them. As he ordered personnel to prep the men for surgery, he hurried to his room and looked up all the procedures he would need to complete. Every single one of the Korean casualties survived. This success would prove to be Demara's downfall. As the heroic story reached Canadian newspapers, the mother of the real Joseph Sayre, the identity Demara was using, was left suspicious. Her son was practicing medicine in New Brunswick. As the truth was realized, Demara got off incredibly lightly, being simply dismissed and sent back to the United States. Canadian officials were so embarrassed that they had allowed an imposter to enter the Navy that they chose not to make it into a big story. Demara would go on to live a colorful life, and later revealing his tales in a biography, where he would explain the brief philosophy he adhered to his roles. Demara had come to 2 beliefs. One was that in any organization there is always a lot of loose, unused power lying about which can be picked up without alienating anyone. The second rule is, if you want power and want to expand, never encroach on anyone else's domain. Open up new ones. In Demara's later life, he would go on to be a pastor, but when rumors trickled through of his past exploits, many of his parishioners couldn't decide if this role was just another con, and as a result, he was removed from the position. In the late 1970s, he became a much-loved minister in California's Good Samaritan Hospital of Orange County. Despite learning of his past, the hospital allowed him to live there until his death in 1982. At the age of 60, Demara died of heart failure. A diabetic, he was by this point a double amputee. Ferdinand Demara would go on to have songs written about him, and a film about his life was made starring Tony Curtis. That is a lot of living to fit into 60 years.